Dan Trudeau here. I'm the VP and Executive Recruiter at PRA USA, and today I want to talk to you about hiring during the current crisis. Now, all economic downturns are tough for both job seekers and employers. This time, however, we're facing some pretty unique challenges. You see, in previous recessions, there were always a handful of companies that were still hiring for select talent. This time around, the quarantine's thrown a wrench in that even for those companies. That said, if you have critical business needs that you need to hire for, you can still do it. That's because our current technology allows us to continue engaging with candidates. In fact, by moving on things right now, you have the opportunity to pick people up while your competitors are still waiting for a return to normalcy. So with that said, here are 5 keys to hiring during this crisis. The first key is to prioritize your openings. You need to decide which positions make the most business sense and therefore are worth your time to recruit for. With your team scattered in home offices and so much uncertainty in the job market, you can't afford to waste time and energy working on positions that you can live without in the short term. So bring your decision makers together to figure this out. Set up strict rules of the road ahead of time with limits that force you to make the tough decisions. Maybe it's something like you can only do 1 hire per group, or you can only hire for projects that have deliverables due in a certain time frame. Whatever makes the most sense for you. This is going to make sure that your recruiting efforts line up with your business goals. The second key is to move outside job boards. There are a lot of potential candidates out there right now who would love to be looking for a new position, but they're holding off because of all this downbeat economic news. Now, they're not going to be on job boards, but you can still reach out to them while they're invisible to your competitors. To do this, you're going to utilize your social media presence, your team members' own networks, and your recruiting agency partners. To start with, make sure that you're communicating these opportunities at all times on your company's social media timelines. That way, they're going to be seen by people who aren't necessarily doing job searching. You're also going to ask your team members to do the same thing on their timelines, including their personal social media accounts. You need to communicate in as many avenues as possible that you are actively hiring. And while you're doing this, you're also going to communicate why your strengths make you such a good bet in such uncertain times. You can talk about things like, how this crisis hasn't damaged your long-term business, your positive track record during previous downturns, and just in general why your company's future is so bright, and things like the advancement opportunities available for your people. The waters are really rough out there. People want to know that you're going to be a safe ship to land on. And of course, recruiting agencies are still actively recruiting, and they've got great networks. So make sure that you reach out to your trusted partners so that you're utilizing their resources as well. The third key is distance interviewing. Now, while in-person interviews are off the table for most companies right now, we can still have face-to-face meetings because of the technology available. Make sure your team is set up to do interviews on Skype, Zoom, whatever app that you've been using. Beyond the opportunity to have the face-to-face discussions, they also have tools like screen sharing that allow you to do presentations, live skill demonstrations, things along those lines. Have a meeting with the whole team up front to make sure that they're familiar with these tools and the best ways to use them. Now, while doing these interviews, you need to emphasize to your team members that they have to do everything they can to present themselves in a way that's consistent with your company image. Everyone understands we're working under unusual circumstances right now, but a visual first impression is still important. That covers everything from the clothes they're wearing to what's in the background. The fourth key is to stay engaged. If your company is not going to be able to extend an offer until they can do an in-person interview, then you need to make sure you're staying engaged with the candidates involved. You can't be loose about it, or you're going to lose your next great hire. The reason why is because keeping in touch can get lost in the shuffle, especially with everyone so out of their old routines. So you're going to develop a keeping in touch program for these candidates. It could be a standard one that's used in all cases or a custom one for each scenario, whatever makes the most sense. You're going to set up a keep in touch schedule You're going to discuss it with the candidate and get their buy-in so that they're committed to it as well. Now, this could be, a regularly scheduled phone call or, some teleconferences you set up for the near future, whatever makes the most sense. Make sure your team is selling the company and the opportunity on every single one of these touches. Make sure that they're mentioning any positive developments since the last conversation, especially if they tie right into the candidate's, concerns or personal goals that they've talked about on previous interviews. This is how you can keep them positive and engaged and excited no matter how long it takes to get through this. The fifth key is a question. Can you hire now? If all of this goes to plan, you may find yourself being able to make an offer. Many assume you can't without an on-site interview. You can't get a good enough sense of the candidate's potential. They can't do the same thing for you. That being said, we're living in really different times right now, so maybe this isn't such a rock-solid rule. It's still going to be true for a lot of companies, but make sure you're not making that decision based on assumption alone. Talk it over with your team. Discuss it with the candidates. See where everyone stands and take it from there. If you're able to get an offer out and accepted, you can always say make the start contingent on the quarantine being lifted, or maybe they can start working remotely. Whatever the case, make sure you're not dismissing ideas just because it's never the way we did things before. As I said at the beginning, this is your opportunity to grab really good people while your competitors are waiting around. In the end, the companies that come through this as winners are going to be the ones who can adapt and stretch themselves in new ways that make sense with their business goals. They're going to be the ones to pull in the best new employees and bounce back from this stronger than ever. Another thing you can do for your success is like, share, and subscribe to the PRA USA channel. In the days ahead, we're going to be sharing advice, answering the big questions, and responding to the news of the day to help both job seekers and employers. We want to use our 30 plus years of experience to give you the edge you need to be successful.